Hey everyone, Sanavi here. First off, I want to give a huge thanks to all of you for helping me reach my first 1,000 subscribers. I'm incredibly grateful for your support and can't wait to share more content with you. Today, I'd like to show you my new build, the Vaal Arc Ignite Elementalist. Timestamps will be in the description below, but in this video, you'll find a clip of what the build looks like fresh from finishing the leveling campaign and getting into white maps. After that, we'll check out a clip of the build clearing a T16 with still minimal investment. And then finally, we'll do a deep dive into the POB so you can see my thought process behind the build, how I suggest leveling it, and gearing it at endgame. Let's get started. Alright, so let's talk about just finishing the campaign. So I'm level 71 on this character. I just got done with Act 10 recently. In terms of my gear, I have no uniques on. This is all just rare gear that has life and resistances and some evasion on it. We don't have any damage affixes on any of our gear outside of our weapons. So like my helm is just life and resistances. The chest is life and resistances. Life and resistances. Arc is on a 4-link, so we're just using it with a 4-link right now, and the gems are still being leveled up, no quality. Our curse setup is flammability and LE weakness on an Arcanist brand with Wave of Conviction for exposure. Once again, these are all just gems I'm leveling from having just started this fresh character. And then my weapon is just something I bought for 3 chaos. I bench crafted the dot damage on it. So really basic gear, as bare bones as it gets. On the skill tree, it's all points allocated. There's no cluster jewels, there's no jewels. We're even having to go into stuff like might and physique and things like that to stack stats right now because our gear is so bad we don't even have the stats on it we need for requirements, so I have to get those points on the tree. So this is as basic as it gets. And then I have this tier 3 map here, so we'll just run this real quick so you guys can get an idea of what this should feel like coming out of the campaign. Also, I haven't even done my 3rd lab yet, so we don't even have convergence, which is huge damage and area of effect. The AoE doesn't matter so much, but convergence is going to be a lot of damage. So we don't even have our 3rd lab or 4th lab. We're still running on just 2 labs. So let's see how this feels. So the idea is you're just going to basically come in and you're going to use your arc on all the mobs. And your arc is going to spread your ignites and just basically burn things down. You get Vaal arc pretty quickly, which gives you more chain and damage on your arc and gives you a buff for a little bit after you use it. So you just kind of get those nice pops like this. So we'll pop our Vaal arc. And then our ignites just kind of burn everything down. When we get a tanky mob like this rare, we pop our curse down, and then we just start spamming, and that should kill them. So I'm just kind of zooming through this so you can kind of see what the ability looks like. Once again, this is with very little investment. We also are pretty tanky right now. We're stacking life and energy shield to give ourselves a large pool for mitigation. We're using evasion and spell suppression, as well as a granite flask for a little PDR. Eventually we'll pick up a cloak of flame, which I'll go into later in the video. That's going to help with converting fizz damage to fire for mitigation and make us even tankier, but I didn't want to use that during this part because I wanted to show you and do a test for what this actually feels like with like no investment. So we're at the boss now. So we're just gonna kill these guys real quick, and then when we come in here, we're gonna drop our curse, pop our Vaal arc. We actually got quadruple bosses right now, and we're just gonna burn them down.
It's just a useless piece of shit.
And that is pretty much it for the build. Very little investment. Like I said, we're just using a 4-link. Our gems aren't even leveled. We have no damage gear, no uniques, nothing invested on the tree. And that's what it feels like coming straight out of the campaign. Alright, so let's take a look at how the build does closer to level 90 with some slight gear changes, doing a T16. So the most notable thing that we've changed on the gear is we are now using a Polaric Devastation. When you use this in your left ring slot, it just makes it so that whenever we ignite enemies, they're covered in ash for 5 seconds. This is just a really great damage multiplier for the build, as well as some increased duration of ailments and increased elemental damage. But the most important thing you want to pick up first, even before the ring, is this Cloak of Flame. What this chest does is that it gives us 40% of physical damage taken as fire damage. So it's a great source of physical mitigation on the build. So you want to pick this up as soon as possible. So those are the two main gear swaps we've done. Obviously we now have a 6-link going, and then the rest of my gear is still life and resistances. What I have done is rolled the Eldritch currency on my gloves, boots, and helmet to get specific implicits. So for instance, on the gloves we have fire exposure. It's not a perfect 15, it's a 14, but it's good enough that we can drop Wave of Conviction from our brand setup and now use a Flame Surge for extra damage. So we've got our 2 curses and Flame Surge on our brand setup. We also have Scorched Ground on the boots and just some ignite damage, just scaling more damage. And then on the helmet, physical damage taken as lightning damage. This is just more physical mitigation on the build, as well as cast speed. I would prefer a flammability curse effect there, but I ran out of currency and that's what I got. That's pretty much it for the gear. As far as the tree goes, we've cleaned up the tree, more in line with what you'll see in the POB for level 90. But there's still no cluster jewels, no jewels investment. This is just points on the tree. So we really have no investment on damage in the build outside of getting this ring and going to a 6-link. We haven't scaled ignite damage anymore. Also a little bit obviously from the ascendancies. So we picked up convergence here, which will be a damage boost on like bosses and stuff. And then I went for more defense, so we have Bastion of Elements. This just gives us that shield you see right now for, you know, helping with taking elemental damage. We also can now run reflect elemental maps because we don't take a reflected elemental damage. So we're going to go ahead and run this map right here, just a T16 Out Can Go, so you can get an idea of how the build feels at this point. So just like before, you're going to come in and you're just going to use your arc and just kind of blow everything up. We get a free sentinel here. And it's really nice when you get your Vaal arc up like we do right now, because then we can just kind of spam it on a bunch of mobs and you get that satisfying effect of everything getting ignited.
Cha-ching!
And that's pretty much it. You know, do this breach here. Try to get around here so we can get another pop off. There's that nice satisfying pop of the arc. Get in here, get another pop off.
Probably pick that up.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's all you got to do for the build. You just spam Vaal arc when it's up and it blows up the map. We're gonna try to go find the boss real quick.
It's fucking awful.
Looks like he's over here. We're going to put down our brands for our curses and our flame surge, and then we're just going to blow up the boss. Spam that arc on him to keep the ignites rolling. And that's pretty much it. We could finish clearing the map, but you get an idea of what the speed is like and what the boss is like on a T16. So once again, no investment on the tree in terms of like cluster jewels, anything like that. No real investment on the gear. It's all just simple stuff still, with the exception of these 2 gear pieces, and easily able to do T16s Out Can Go. Okay, so let's take a look at the POB. Now with all my POBs, I've created loadouts so that you can easily jump around depending on what part of the build you want to see in terms of its progression. The way loadouts work in POB is if you come to the top here, there's a drop down. When you select an item from this drop down, it updates everything in the POB. So if we go to the level 90 budget version of the build, it'll update not just the tree, but it also does the skills, the items, and the configs for that bracket. So with one click, it does all the work for you. First, we're going to talk about leveling this build. So we're going to go to the level 16 bracket. This is simply the tree. We're going to pick up some easy resistances in life to help out at the beginning. For skills, we're going to use Freezing Pulse as our main ability, and then just Clarity and Vitality for life and mana regen, Flame Dash for our mobility. In the first couple brackets, I don't tell you a whole list of items to get. I just make some helpful suggestions based on what you really should get early on. So for this portion, you're going to want a wand that has some kind of cold damage to spells or increased cold damage because we're using Freezing Pulse. You're also going to want to pick up a couple Sapphire Rings because you're going to want some good cold resistance going into the boss at the end of Act 1. And then you're going to be looking for a heavy belt, either from the vendor or something that drops in game, just to get some easy strength early on so we can use, vitality and other things without any issue. That's pretty much it for, completing Act 1. When you complete Act 1, you get Arc, and we're going to use Arc for the rest of the leveling. So if we go to the next one, this is the pre-lab or pre-normal lab. At this point, we're doing just Arc Lightning. So you can see we path up here, we grab all the lightning nodes, and then we're also grabbing Elemental Overlord. If we go to our skills, we're now using Arc with these supports, Orb of Storms, these auras, and movement skills. Everything's here for you to look at with ease. For the items, we're now going to want a wand that does some kind of lightning damage to spells or increased lightning because we're now using Arc, not Freezing Pulse. And I also recommend at this point you start looking for a Citrine Amulet because we're really going to want easy access to strength and dexterity early on. And then once again, you're just going to keep using a heavy belt for that easy strength. And that's pretty much it for going into lab sometime around level 30. Now once you complete your first lab on the next tree, same amount of points, but we're going to do a respec. We're now going fire. Now you can use the gold from the League mechanic for easy respecking. You're going to drop all the lightning nodes and start picking up all the fire nodes. Likewise, we're now using different supports with Arc because we're scaling the ignite on Arc or the fire damage. We're now using Flame Surge for some additional fire damage, as well as Wave of Conviction. Wave of Conviction is going to give us exposure on our enemies so that it lowers their elemental resistances so our abilities do more damage. And then for our items, now you're just going to want a wand that has like some kind of spell damage for fire, increased fire damage to spells. Still want to use a heavy belt and a Citrine Amulet. Going to level 46, we just continue to pick up more life, more fire, some life over here. We're picking up some stat nodes on the tree to help out with gearing because getting, gear early on with the right stats can be hard. For our skills, we're pretty much using the same thing. We're adding flammability because we'll have access to this, finishing Act 3, going into Act 4. So we now have a curse. Rest of our abilities are pretty much the same. We're now hopefully running a 4-link going into Katava in Act 5. And then same for our items, we want a fire weapon, Citrine Amulet, heavy belt. Once we get to the level 57 tree, I start going more into detail with the gear. I'm not going to tell you exactly what stats and resistances to get on the gear. What I've done on the config for each bracket is I've just put in what you're looking for. How you satisfy that on your gear is up to whatever drops or what you craft on the bench or what you trade with other players. What's important is the armor bases you look for. You want evasion and energy shield armor. So these are examples of the type of pieces you can get around this level. Also, starting from level 57, I now have flasks loaded. These are my recommendations for what flasks you should be using during the different parts of the build. Starting once again with level 57, I've created a uniform list of abilities and where I suggest you socket them ideally, and this will be the same format all the way through every iteration of the build. So level 57, we're just continuing to path and pick up more stuff. And then we do our lab. At level 67, this is probably when you're going to finish the campaign. This is what your tree roughly should look like. Once again, our skills have just updated based on where we're at in terms of leveling. And then, another pre-generated item list of what you should be aiming for in terms of, armor bases. And then we have the level 77 tree. This will be the last version of the tree that looks like this. And at this point, we're still using the same ability setup for the most part, just the gems have gotten higher in level. Likewise, we're just looking for better armor pieces at higher levels. Once we go from 77 to level 90, this is when we're going to do a respec on the tree. It's to clean up the pathing and get us ready for eventually picking up cluster jewels way down the road. So you can see when we go from level 77 to the 90 budget, the pathing changed a lot and we kind of clean up the tree. We're also slightly changing the gems a little bit, and now we're looking for specific uniques. So like you saw earlier in the clips, sometime from level 77 or your 70s to level 90, you're going to want to pick up that Cloak of Flame for that really good physical damage mitigation. You're also going to want to pick up that Polaric Devastation Ring for that additional damage. And you can expect with this very minimal gear here and skill setup and tree to be doing roughly around 2 million ignite damage, which should be more than enough damage than you'll ever need to just do T16 Alch & Go, chill farming, complete your Atlas, get your Void Stones, etc. Now I have one other tree in here. This is heavily a work in progress. Over the next couple days, this is what I'll be testing with and reiterating as I push the build and scale it. And this is just scaling more damage while trying to keep it tanky. So you can see we're up to 7 million ignite dot damage right now. And we have a very different gear setup. We have more uniques. We're running a Storm Shroud with, you know, the Abyss Jewels for that elemental ailment immunity, and a lot of difference. There's a lot of difference from the level 90 to the where we start to sink money into the build. I would not take this part of the POB verbatim, because this is probably going to change a lot over the next few days as I actually invest in the build and scale it. And I'll be doing another video in a couple days with an update on the build, and this part of the POB will most likely be heavily edited at that point with an updated POB. So this is kind of just where I'm theory crafting right now, but this is probably going to change heavily in the next few days. The rest of the POB though, from leveling at the beginning up until having a budget build that can clear the Atlas and do T16s and stuff, this is pretty much done. I've tested it in game, as you've seen with the footage. It's solid, it gets the job done, it feels good, it feels tanky, it does decent damage. Now I'll be working on this part of the build. So that's pretty much it for the POB. That's where I'm at with the build. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. I really like the feeling when I pop Vaal Arc and it blows up the whole screen. Yeah, it's something different, something fun, and I look forward to scaling it over the next few days and seeing what it can do. Hopefully, for those of you that want to play an Arc build, kind of that throwback to the old Sorcerer play style, this kind of satisfies that itch. And I hope that for those of you that are newer, this POB is really helpful in terms of leveling the build, how to gear it, what to look for, and essentially how to get it online. So once again, thank you for all the support. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and the build, and I'll catch you all later.